In this video, we're going to talk about career transition, or as it used to be known, outplacement. We're going to understand what it is and how to maximize its utility. That's coming up right now. Hi there, I'm Andrea Adams and the host of the HR Hub. On the show, you get expert insight into all things HR. I encourage you to subscribe to the show or podcast to keep learning from my guests. Today, my guest is Kim Spurgeon. Kim is the Senior VP of Canada for Career Transition and Mobility for LHH Knightsbridge. And if you're in North America, you've probably heard of them before. She's had a variety of roles at LHH, and I'm super happy to have someone with so much experience to talk about our topic today. Hi, Kim, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. So, career transition or outplacement. I always start at the beginning. So if you could just go in, just describe, what is it?
Sure. It's not like the movie show that we see on career transition with George Clooney, just to be clear. So Our role essentially as career transition providers is we really have two customers. We have the people that we service that have been let go from their organizations for whatever reason, as well as the corporation we support during the notification period, right through their job search till they land a new job or go back to school, whatever their chosen profession is. So our role is really to provide that support, empathetic support to the individual being impacted. At the same time, we coach HR and the line manager that's actually doing the notification in terms of delivering the news. And we're often, not always, but on site or virtually on site to support that individual after they get that difficult news from their employer. No, we don't deliver the news. We are there to support them after the fact. So some people might say, oh my gosh, that must be a hard job. Actually, no, our role is to help people after they get the bad news from their employer. We don't give the bad news. We don't decide on the bad news. We're there to help after the bad news. So that's kind of what career transition is. But we have two customers, the one getting the support and the organization that we're there to support pre, during, and post that notification meeting, or in some case, termination meeting or exit meeting. Everybody has different names for them.
Okay, so let's imagine that I'm the HR person who's thinking about terminating somebody, thinking about whether or not there's a role for career transition. What do I need to know?
So I think there's a couple of things you need to know. The reason you give career transition, I'll do the two, one for the individual and again for the corporation. The reason you give it as a corporation is because it's the right thing to do, to take care of the people that we no longer have a place for a spot or a role in our organization. So that's kind of the first and primary role. So some people give it purely for that reason, which is awesome. The other reasons that are sometimes more the reasons they choose is one is to mitigate risk of being sued by the individual being impacted because they're doing things to help them get reemployed when they lose their job. So the whole concept of a severance is to bridge them till they get new employment. Career transition is there to bridge them. So why they provide it from a mitigating risk perspective is they want to mitigate the impact by the employee suing them around support of getting reemployed. So that's the second reason. The third reason, and probably just as important in the day of social media, is your brand. How you treat people leaving the organization is just as important as how you onboard them. So how that person's perceived when they're exited, was somebody respectful, dignified, giving that difficult news? Were they empathetic to my concerns? If it goes horribly wrong, we hear about it from everybody on social media. It's on Facebook, it's on LinkedIn, it's on everything, if people aren't treated properly. So your impact on your corporate brand is hugely impacted how you treat people that leave the organization, because everybody that stays is watching, and everybody that individual interacts with once they leave have a point of view depending on how you treat them. Like there's times that our consultants can be on site and they're upset, they're crying, they're yelling. They might even be yelling at the career transition consultant. Not because they're mad at us, it's because the news that they receive, but they often apologize the day after they leave there to our career consultants to say, it wasn't about you, I was upset I lost my job. So it's really about all of those reasons why you give it. And to some organizations, they have different philosophies or reasons why they give it. Some say, I give it just to show I pretend to care and I really don't. That's a smaller minority why people give it. But really, it's to help people get re-employed or successful journey, because it might be school, it might be self-employment, different things, to get them back on their feet to wherever they want to go. That's really the primary reason.
Yeah. Speaking of that brand, this morning I was reading an article of, I guess he is a former Twitter employee, but we all know Twitter and Elon Musk. I mean, holy moly, bad.
How not
press.
to do it. That's a perfect, actually be a good case study of how not to deliver the news.
Right. Well, this guy had been locked out of the system for over a week, but HR couldn't tell him if he was still an employee or not. That's how not to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've talked about this a little bit, but what is the role of a career transition professional, like one of the LHH employees?
Sure, there's a couple roles they play. And again, it depends on the level of the employee being impacted. So the first role the coach would play is to support the notification meeting. So that's the first role, if they want us to. So whether it's virtually, we'll join their Zoom call, Teams call, WebEx call, whatever call, or they can be on site if people are back in person in terms of the support. And really our goal in that first meeting is to help them focus on looking forward. You know, most of the studies will share with you, if employees focus on looking forward, they're more successful in finding the next role. Those who spend all their time saying, why me? Why not Joe? Why did they do this to me? They're awful. Then they look backwards. They typically are so caught up in the why that they don't actually move forward. So our first role is to make sure, one, they understood the news. They understand the decision is final, because sometimes they think that they can negotiate, in which it's not. And to understand how we're going to support them going forward and deliver, how are we going to craft that message to their family? And in some cases, it's more difficult to share with family than in others, and it depends on the culture. We're global, so there's different cultures around the globe that are much more sensitive to that. So there's a number of things we do, but really our goal is to make sure they understood the news, they understand that it's final, and they understand how we're going to support them moving forward, right? The organization really is giving them two things: the severance to financially help them, and career transition to help them move forward successfully in their job search or their next role, whether it's retirement, self-employment, etc. So really that's the first stop. The second stop is when they actually do the one-on-one coaching with the individual through the process. So really, depending on the level, they're like an advisor. So all the steps are on. We have branding specialists that'll really write their resume for them, write their LinkedIn profile for them, to help prepare them for an interview, to help them build their leaving story, to their value proposition, what they are going to offer to the next employer. And often you're regardless of your level, top executives to the front line, your ego is pretty bruised when you get that news. So part of our job is to say, even though you lost a job, you didn't lose those skills. So let's redefine what those skills are. Let's make sure they're presented in a way that are transferable to other organizations, that you can communicate that. So our role is really to be that advisor along the steps and along the way they go. More junior roles, it would be more hands-on, because some of them need more support. More senior roles, you're really a trusted advisor, probably help them with their negotiation of their offer. There might be some onboarding coaching for them at the end when they start the new role as well, for the more senior executives. So it ranges. And again, we try to meet them where they're at. So if somebody's never done job search, they've been with an organization for 30 years, it's going to be baby steps as you work it through. Someone that lost their job 2 years ago, yeah, I have a resume, just need to update it, need to rework on my value proposition, need to rebuild my networking story, whatever. And so they may have more direct things that they want support in. But really our role is to help them till they get to whatever that successful landing spot is.
So if I'm, again, back to being that HR professional, now I've decided I'm going to hire you, what decisions do I have to make?
I think it depends on a couple of things. When people are doing large restructurings, they often want to do the same for everybody because it's easiest and it's quickest and it's a little bit more seamless, which you absolutely can do. If you truly want to say what's right for each person, you're going to look at some of the same criteria you look at for a severance. Your employability, how long you've been with the company, how senior you are, what's your age, how easy it is going to be for you to be reemployed. All of those factors should be part of your decision making in terms of how much support, whether it's as small as 1 month or as much as 12 months. It's kind of a big range. Again, it depends on level, what you want to do, but I would look at all of those criteria when you're making decisions as to what type of package or program you want to put together for the individual.
What's the value proposition?
To whom? Because there's a value proposition for two.
I'm the employer. What's the value proposition to the employer?
To the employer? Well, I think doing the right thing for the individual is number one. That's why we give them severances. So if you truly believe in doing what's right to support someone to be reemployed, that's the first value proposition. The second value proposition is someone's there to support you when they get the news. The notifying manager shouldn't be there more than a couple minutes. So sometimes we're there to pick up the pieces if the news didn't get delivered right, or the individual's not responding the way you expected, or need to make sure the individual leaves the organization or the building, et cetera, in terms of a timely fashion. So the first part is to help mitigate risk the day of the notification. The second part the third part, I should say, because I gave you the first part already. The third part is really to say, what's the employer brand I want to have? What's the culture I want to demonstrate to the world? Do we want to say we're a caring organization that care about our people? Yes, check. That means I need to be doing something for people leaving and the people going. And I guess this is even bigger impact if you think about people's brand, if it's a consumer brand. If you treat me bad and you happen to be my banker, I can tell you right now, I'm never going to bank with you again, right?
Yeah.
So part of it is the impact on the employer's brand for the people leaving and the people staying, as I mentioned earlier. So positive brand around your culture and commitment to your people. If people define their biggest asset as their people, what are they doing for the people leaving, right?
Is there like sort of a financial value? So if you pay for career transition, you're likely to, for example, decrease your litigation costs.
It's interesting. We don't have a direct correlation, but I will tell you, we had a customer that wanted to basically they piloted it, where they basically stopped for 6 months giving career transition to their employees, every level. And then they looked at their legal costs during that 6-month window, and they were significantly higher than the 6 months before when they actually offered career transition. So anecdotally, I would say to you, many organizations said it really reduces their costs because it basically is telling them you care about the person, you truly want them to find another job when they leave the organization. So I would suggest it really mitigates people's financial risk from a lawsuit perspective. But I also think, in the world of boomerang and the shortage of employees, there may be an opportunity for the individual to come back in another capacity, right? So don't underestimate this current marketplace where there's so many roles that are unfilled right now. I think really, when they're thinking about deciding about career transition, the second part, because you asked me this earlier and I didn't mention it, but I'll mention it now, is there another place in the organization that they might fit? Did you think about that? Because that mitigates or reduces your career transition costs and your transfer knowledge about what's going on in the organization if they could find you another role within. So I would do that as my first stop before I considered career transition, and in terms of looking at mobility within the organization.
Okay,
if it's performance-based, it's not going to be an option if it's performance-based, but many are not, right?
Yeah. Is that why your job title includes the word mobility, because you're looking at the mobility within an organization?
Yeah, so career mobility is really around, it's kind of a couple pieces. One is to say, redeploy people within the organization. So that's an option because we support organizations on that as well. Career mobility, if you want to drive higher engagement, meaning we're a global company, but how do I find roles outside of my city of Toronto? Or how do I find roles in other departments or other divisions in the bank or the organization? I use banks because it's always one that people can relate to. But it's really about helping find them a better role or a different role that's better suited to their skills within the organization. So that's part of the career mobility, that career development piece in terms of driving engagement with your current employees, because there is such a skills shortage currently in the marketplace. It's really important. Yeah. So yes, that is part of why I have that title as well.
So When should an organization reach out to you or anybody else who's doing this kind of work?
So I would say the sooner the better, because we can help with their planning. We've done thousands and thousands of them, from one person to 10,000 people. We have done support in many different sizes, and we can help with logistics. We can help with all kinds of templates to help planning those logistics, giving you advice around, do you do them one by one? Do you do them in waves? Do you do them in groups? All that kind of stuff. So the sooner the better. And for many of our customers, we built our relationship on that discrete confidentiality. So we don't share that information with anybody, but we also can sign an NDA if people are concerned about that. But we often would, long before the public knows, we would know what's going on in any of the large restructurings you hear in the news. We've long been involved in the organization before it hits the news.
What about small employers who often have more limited budgets? Is there a way that they can use career transition services?
For sure. I think it depends on the level of the employee being impacted, whether you're a small employer or a large employer. If you're a senior executive, you'd probably want to treat them the same as if they were in a big company as they're in a small company, in the context of the level of service. Having said that, smaller employers, again, depending on the employee level, whether you're a blue collar, white collar, executive, frontline manager, or individual contributor, there's always ways to say, what else can we do for these individuals without individual programs? So there's lots of organizations. We would just do workshops on resume development, or on job search skills, on networking, and you could do workshops and like a pool of coaching hours or something like that. We also have programs that are geared to blue collar that are more technology option to make it more cost effective. So there's different things to do depending on the size of the organization and the level of the employee.
Okay. So you're going to give advice on how to prepare, what to say at the...
Yes, we'll do training sessions galore, which we do for not only HR, but the notifying manager as to what to say. We'll be able to help them with templates. We'll do the whole thing. We'll do videos with them if they want to. So we often will do manager training for those big notifications, or one-off, going, Johnny's never done one before. He has to do a termination next week. Can you spend some time with Johnny? Absolutely. We'll spend time with Johnny explaining how simple the message needs to be. And it's not really complicated. Shouldn't be in the room for more than 3 minutes, or with the person for more than 3 minutes.
Final question. Why so short?
Sometimes when people feel bad of delivering that difficult news, they sometimes end up saying things that are justifying it or backpedaling. And then sometimes people think it's negotiable because of what comes out of their mouth. Well, I'm really sorry, Mary. Yeah, I know I'm sorry I had to deliver this to you. I know it wasn't really my decision. Well, you know what? And they just start going on, and they get lost. And sometimes they say things that they should not be saying. And that sometimes either leaves the employee confused, leaves the employee thinking that the door is open, it's still negotiable when it's not, or says things that they might regret in terms of sharing too much information, right? So a number of those reasons why they should not have the conversation for very long.
Okay. All right. Well, that segues nicely into our future conversation about conducting terminations, but I'm going to stop this episode here. Thanks, Kim. I totally appreciate how career transition can help an employer, can help HR, can assist the brand, as well as helping the employee at a very difficult moment in their life. It's something I recommend to my clients when that arises. I've also done an episode on coaching, which Kim mentioned, probably not coaching in the same circumstances, but anyways, coaching. That link is right here. Thanks for watching out there. We'll catch you next time.